We will bring the regular assembly meeting to order for September 12th. Mr. Bryson, will you lead us in the flag salute, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Madam Deputy Mayor, will you give us the land acknowledgement, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We would like to acknowledge that the city and borough of Juneau is on Tlingit land and wish to honor the indigenous people of this land. For more than 10,000 years, Alaska Native people have been and continue to be integral to the well-being of our community. We're grateful to be in this place, a part of this community, and to honor the culture, traditions, and resilience of the Tlingit people. Gunul Chish.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Bryson.
Present.
Ms. Hale.
Here.
Ms. Hughes-Scandies.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Treem is absent tonight. Ms. Wall.
Present.
Walakidak. Not joined us yet. Deputy Mayor Gladys
Here.
and Mayor Weldon.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and we need to recess for 2 minutes. Give instructions for public participation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our instructions to the public was to call our office in advance of the meeting if they wish to testify via Zoom. We have not had anyone sign up in advance to testify via Zoom. There was a sign up sheet at the back of the room, which I just handed off to you, Madam Mayor. And so for anyone who may be watching and would like to participate via Zoom, the link is at the top of our agenda at juneau.org, or they can call in to 1-253-215-8782 and enter webinar ID number 915-1542-4903 to listen in to tonight's meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I see Senator Keel in the back, so let's bring up Senator Keel.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Senator Keel, and this is in honor of special recognition of Mila Cosgrove.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly, Mr. Manager and Deputy Manager. It's my distinct privilege and pleasure tonight to recognize someone who, when I sat at that table as a member of the Assembly, I referred to as Madam Deputy Manager. I get to be here tonight to present a legislative citation on behalf of the legislature of the state of Alaska, honoring Mila Cosgrove on her career of public service, on her retirement. This is a little bit belated, this presentation. There was a thing when she retired, something didn't make meetings work well for public recognition, gatherings. What was that, Mila? These things fade. These things fade, but we've reduced a little piece of that to black and white in the text of the citation itself. I should just pause and say, legislators don't get many superpowers with the job. We can perform weddings, which Mila took care of long before I met her, but we can also honor extraordinary Alaskans. And that is what this legislative citation does. We are limited in the number of these we get to do. You know, we run for office, right? It would be a dangerous thing to let us honor people without limit. But when I learned that Mila was retiring, there was no question that she was one of those uncommon Alaskans whose career of service to our state, to the people of our state, deserved recognition. And so I won't read the entire citation, Madam Mayor, but it does recount a tremendous career in human resources, both in the private and public sectors. It recounts, of course, her distinguished service, incident commander, and all the work she did throughout the COVID situation. remembering those early days when there was such uncertainty and so many things that had to be created while we didn't know what the rules needed to be. It also talks, though, about her career in between coming to work for the state and the city and borough of Juneau, and that retirement after, I think, really exemplary service in the COVID emergencies. Simple things that we sometimes don't recognize, making government work better. The pipeline of having good supervisors who can lead good teams in the public sector and make government work better, more efficiently, more effectively. CBJ Supervisory Academy is an exemplary program to do exactly that. We didn't have to have one. Mila Cosgrove created one because she saw that it would make things work better. Her career is replete with examples like that. And so, Madam Mayor, it is my absolute privilege on behalf of the state of Alaska, and you'll see that this citation is co-sponsored by Representative Hannan and Representative Story. It is signed by both the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. On behalf of a unanimous Alaska State Legislature, let me just flag that. I take this opportunity to honor Mila Cosgrove and thank you for your career of dedication to Alaskans.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no, it's her.
Thank you, everyone. I'm getting out of here. We can still you up.
With that, we will go on to manager's request for agenda changes. Mr. Manager, you had something for us tonight.
Madam Mayor, I have a slight agenda change under the consent agenda, letter K, bid awards. We have two bids, agenda items 10 and 11 that hinge on appropriations that happen shortly after the consent agenda. So if we could move items 10 and 11, the two bid awards, one for Bartlett Regional Hospital upgrades, and the other for the Juneau International Airport access road and float pond improvements to new business to item 31, then we will be taking action in the right order.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. With that, we will go to public participation on non-agenda items. And if I read my list right, I think we only have one person on a non-agenda item, and that's Mr. Sylvester. If you would come up. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay, yeah, my name is Bob Sylvester. I live in the downtown area. And I'm not sure if I'm talking about the history of my life or housing in Juneau, but I just wanted to run through this. In 1975, I came up to Juneau to see if it was a good fit for me, and turned out it wasn't. But I did get to live here for a while on a boat in Aurora Basin. After that, though, I decided I'd step it up a bit, and I moved to Haines, where I ended up living in a barn. So in 1980, I made a third or fourth try to stick here in Juneau, and I did actually land on both feet here. In 1980, I was fishing out in Cross Sound, and I was anyway, the fishing wasn't very good, so I ended up back in Juneau a little early. So I was kind of at loose ends, and a friend of mine told me that I could join the Juneau Tenants Action Coalition, and I was impressed by the title. I didn't know that it didn't exist, but after a few meetings with people in different places, we got enough folks together to decide to form formed this action coalition. And it turns out that housing was a problem in 1980, believe it or not. And people told me it was a problem. Okay. Oh, okay, I'm still on. Anyway, so we got busy. We coordinated with the state representative, the 2 state representatives and the state senator, with the city and borough of Juneau and a whole bunch of nonprofits. We came up with a Juneau Housing Symposium in October of 1980. I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself. We got $5 million from the legislature to be handed out, given to developers to develop housing in Juneau. They ran through the $5 million and started building just in time for the price of oil to go down, I'm sure 50% or so. And
Mr.
so,
Sylvester, I have to ask you to wrap it up because you're past
Okay.
2 minutes.
okay, sorry. Anyway, my point is, I just want to quote Jesse Keel. The making government work better is a goal of pretty much everyone, I hope. And we have spent a lot of time and money. I didn't get to go through the other instances, the many instances since 1980 that we've thrown or spent money on housing. But we need to decide to do whatever it takes to develop a sustainable amount of housing for everyone in Juneau. We can't just keep throwing $5 million here and $5 million there, because pretty soon it's going to start to add up. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sylvester? Thank you for your testimony tonight. Does anybody else in the room want to speak on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we will move to the consent agenda. Is there any public request for consent agenda changes other than ordinances for introduction? Are there any assembly requests for consent agenda changes? Seeing none? Ms. Glashow?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move the consent agenda as amended. That is moving items K, 10, and 11 to new business and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda is moved. So that brings us to public hearing. Item 13, I guess, instead of item A, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is getting used to our new agenda management program here, so thank you for bearing with me. This is ordinance 2021-36, an ordinance amending the land use code related to the downtown Juneau Alternative Development Overlay District.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
In 2017, the Assembly established an alternative development overlay district for downtown Juneau and associated interim regulations. Since then, the Community Development Department and the Planning Commission have worked on drafting permanent regulations. This ordinance would establish the permanent regulations for downtown residential properties, which would modify existing lot size, lot width, vegetative cover, structure heights, and setbacks. These proposed regulations would create options for residential development that are more consistent with the current neighborhoods. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the Assembly. Be advised that we do have Director McLean online if we need her. And just a shout out to Ms. Gallion for making the little video that hopefully people got to watch the floating box in. But I still have questions, Ms. Gallion. Anyway, let's start with questions first. Any questions on this? Okay, I guess I have the only question in the whole room. So if you'd bring over Ms. McLean or Ms. Gallion, I'm not sure who answers this. So when we get to section N, item 13, page, I guess we have to go by that now. 69. 70. Page 69, I guess. Where we're looking at the floating boxes. I was wondering if there's, because it doesn't read anywhere, I was wondering if there's a to do the floating box, does the person have to have a reason? And because I'm looking at the first figure 1 and it's completely symmetrical around, and the second one is 7 feet back and with leaving only 3 feet in the back. Do they have to have a reason to move that, or can they move it at their own free will? Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I think I caught most of that, but I may have lost a little bit as I was moving over. So if I understand the question correctly, it's the setbacks, and can the property owner simply choose the ones they want, or is there a process to that?
That's
and I would
exactly my question. You said it much better. Thank you.
Thank you. So this overlay, this will keep in place the underlying zoning. So if the underlying zoning is D5 or D18, and you prefer those setbacks or the other dimensional standards, they can certainly continue to use those, but they will have the option to use this overlay district as well. And there really isn't, it wouldn't be on the staff's like per hour review, as long as it's meeting the ADOD minimum requirements, they can adjust those setbacks to meet their needs, with the caveat that they add up to the 20 or whatever the proportional reduction would be if they're on a smaller lot size. But the idea is really to keep it as flexible as we can. And knowing that the area that this is in, it's the older built environment downtown on steep slopes, really tiny lots, some of them quite odd shaped, but also people just having to mostly renovate or rehab their existing housing that they have already. And so oftentimes they're trying to keep within their same footprint, which brings them into those setbacks today, which don't work for them, and we can't grant variances. So I hear what you're saying. I think the concern with neighboring properties and how they will feel. I think we're going to constantly run into that, but yes, the property owner will have the ability to pick basically their setbacks in that box, as long as it adds up to 20. And then I would just say too, that the minimum that we settled on, that the commission recommended as well, is based on the fire code. And so you have to maintain 3 feet from your property line on each side. And there are instances where it can be a little less, but even with 3 feet, there are still requirements to ensure that the structures meet the fire code and fire resistant and things like that. So no, it really will be up to the applicant or the property owner to pick their setbacks and what best fits for them for the project that they happen to be proposing. But all of the uses and the additions that they are proposing do have to be legal uses under the underlying zoning. So they can't choose to do a wholly different use. It will be what's allowed per code, and then they can make the setbacks fit their needs. Sorry, I think I rambled a little bit there.
That's all right. I'm sure you got somebody else's question answered too. Any questions? We're a quiet group tonight, so thank you, Ms. McLean. Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we adopt ordinance 2021-36, amending the land use code relating to downtown Juneau Alternative Development Overlay District, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that has moved. Item 14, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-22. An ordinance amending the City and Borough of Juneau Code related to the Aquatic Board of Directors.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
Over the last 2 years, the Aquatics Board has had vacancies, which contributed to meetings being canceled for lack of quorum. The Aquatics Board recommended changes to its membership requirements so it can continue to provide effective oversight of the pool facilities. Assembly Human Resources Committee reviewed this topic on August 1st, 2022, recommending the Assembly reduce membership from 9 to 7 and allow up to 3 members to be from a local aquatic organization. Assemblymember Treem has also proposed an amendment to remove the current code requirement that inserts the aquatic board into the hiring process for the aquatics manager. That amendment is packet page 75. Systemic Racism Review Committee discussed this ordinance at their August 30, 2022 and September 6, 2022 meetings. After significant discussion, SRRC moved that it believes there are larger issues with respect to diversity in boards and commissions that merit further review, but did not flag this specific piece of legislation. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the assembly. Ms. Hughes Scandies, and I believe that you're going to take care of the Treem amendment also, correct?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move ordinance 2022-22. And then as Assembly Member Treem put forward this amendment, I told her I would put it forward. So I would also move the Treem amendment, which is on packet page 75, and ask for unanimous consent.
Okay, so on the amendment, are there any objections to the amendment? Seeing none, the amendment passes. Back to the main motion. Are there any objections to the motion as amended? Seeing none, that ordinance passes as amended. Item 15, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-30, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city and borough to change the zoning of Catholic Community Services property located near 1800 Glacier Highway from D10 to light commercial.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
At their regular meeting on April 12, 2022, the Planning Commission recommended that the Assembly approve a rezone of 2.6 acres from D10 residential to light commercial. The property is across Old Glacier Highway from Wickersham Drive and is recognizable by current operations of the Bridge Adult Daycare and Access Paratransit Service. Planning Commission based their recommendation on Assembly decisions that have found light commercial to conform to the 2013 comprehensive plan of medium density residential. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll move it to the assembly, and we do have Director McLean still with us if people have questions. Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-30 regarding the official zoning map for Catholic Community Services, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Ms. Hughes Scandies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would object just for a question. Director McLean, I apologize that I wasn't able to call you earlier, so sorry to put you on the spot like this. I was just curious, and you don't have to get into the details if it's not this, but basing their recommendation on assembly decisions, the one that is in my most recent memory of the light commercial conforming to medium density residential, would that be, was the North Douglas rezone an example of that?
Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it is similar to that one and the Atlan Street, and based on the Assembly's decision that with the North Douglas rezone, that light commercial does indeed meet the medium density residential land use designation from the comprehensive plan. That's why we also found that it would be appropriate in this location, as did the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Any follow-up, Ms. Hughes Scandies?
No follow-up for Director McLean. Thank you, Director McLean. I will remove my objection and just make the note to us as a body that when we make decisions like that, we are also setting precedent. So we should make sure we're good with the precedent we're setting.
A good reminder. Any further objection or any objection? Seeing none, that ordinance passes. Item 16, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-36, an ordinance amending the sales tax code to exempt veteran organizations.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
The Juneau Sales Tax Code exempts sales by nonprofit organizations and through nonprofit organizations from the imposition of sales tax. That exemption is limited to organizations with 501c3 and 501c4 designations from the Internal Revenue Service. However, veteran service organizations such as the American Legion are separately designated by the IRS as nonprofit organizations under 501c19. This ordinance extends the nonprofit sales tax exemption to eligible 501c19 veteran service organizations. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any member of the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll move it to the assembly. Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the Assembly approve ordinance 2022-36, an ordinance amending the sales tax code to exempt veteran organizations, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that ordinance passes. Item 17, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-41, an ordinance authorizing the manager to execute a lease with the Juneau Arts and Humanities Council for use of the Juneau Arts and Culture Center building.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
The state of Alaska conveyed the former Armory building and property to the city and borough of Juneau in 2006. In 2007, the city began leasing the building now known as the Juneau Arts and Culture Center, or JAC, to the Juneau Arts and Humanities Council to rent and manage the performance and exhibit space for community arts and cultural events. This ordinance will authorize the Arts and Humanities Council to continue to lease and operate the JAC for the benefit of the community by providing arts and cultural opportunities for Juneau and the surrounding southeast communities. In identifying the Arts and Humanities Council's nonprofit status and the public service it provides, the Assembly has leased the JAC to the Arts Council at less than fair market value in accordance with 5309270. Lands Housing and Economic Development Committee reviewed this lease request at its June 27 meeting and provided a motion of support to continue to lease this property to the Arts and Humanities Council for the lease rate of $500 per month for the first 3 years and $1,000 per month for the last 2 years. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any member of the public wishes to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we will move it to the assembly. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-41, an ordinance authorizing the manager to execute a lease with the Juneau Arts and Humanities Council for use of the Juneau Arts and Culture Center building, and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. Item 18, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-06, version B. F is in Frank, an ordinance appropriating $9,563 to the manager for the Statter Harbor Phase 3C Capital Improvement Project. Grant funding provided by the Alaska Department of Fish and Game.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
Docks and Harbors has been awarded an additional $9,563 in Clean Vessel Act grant funding from the Alaska Department of Fish and Game to construct, manage, and maintain sewage pump out stations in Statter Harbor. This award increases a grant appropriated under Ordinance 2019-06 AF. A local match requirement of $3,188 will be provided by previously appropriated funds from the Statter Harbor CIP. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any member of the public wish to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we will bring it to the assembly, and we do have Mr. Where did he go? Creswell was here. Never mind. Ms. Glasewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move ordinance 2022-06 B, like Bravo Frank F, and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Ms. Glasewski. Any objection? Seeing none, that motion is approved. Item 19. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-06, version B. Capital letter G is in goat. An ordinance appropriating $5 million to the manager for the North State Office Building Parking Capital Improvement Project. Grant funding provided by the Alaska Department of Commerce, Community and Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
CBJ has been awarded a $5 million designated legislative grant through the Alaska Department of Commerce, Community and Economic Development. This grant provides partial funding for the planning, design, and construction of additional parking levels above the North State Office Building parking garage. Additional project funding could be provided by temporary 1% sales tax if extended by voters during the October election. This project is number 10 on CBJ's FY23 legislative priority list. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and thank you to the legislature and the governor for sending money this way. Any member of the public wish to speak to this ordinance? And we do have Mr. Rogers, our finance director, too, on hand if we need questions for him. With that, we'll bring it back to the assembly. Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we adopt ordinance 2022-06BG, appropriating $5 million to the manager for the state office building parking capital improvement project. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that ordinance is approved. Item 20, Madam Clerk.
This is ordinance 2022-06, version B, H is in hotel. An ordinance appropriating $292,000 to the manager for the Eagle Valley Center Capital Improvement Project. Grant funding provided by the Rasmussen Foundation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
The Rasmussen Foundation has awarded CBJ a $292,000 grant to renovate the Eagle Valley Center. This grant funding will supplement the 2020 voter-approved general obligation bond funding for energy efficiency improvements. With the grant funding, the project work will include a new, more efficient exterior building shell, new windows and doors, electric boiler and hot water system, electrical upgrades, potable water filtration system for a well, rot removal, and site drainage improvements. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And we do have Mr. Schaaf with us, Director Schaaf, I should say, with us. Any member of the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll move it to the assembly. Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the assembly adopt ordinance 2022-06BH, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes Candies. Any objection? Seeing none, that is approved. Item 21, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-06, version B, J. An ordinance transferring $116,600 from the manager's office to engineering and public works for grant writing and consulting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
This ordinance would transfer $116,600 from the manager's office to engineering and public works department for grant writing and consulting. The grant writer position was created in FY22 and funded by ordinance 2021-08-BAMH in an effort to identify, prioritize, and pursue funding opportunities available to the city from an unprecedented level of federal stimulus infused into the economy. Establishing the grant writer position in the engineering and public works department facilitates collaboration and partnership between grant writing and likely infrastructure grant recipients within the CBJ. Grant writer position will be partially funded by CIPs, making available additional funding for grant consulting from Blank Rome LLP, our federal lobbyists. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And we do have Director Kester too, if you have any questions for her on this. Any member of the public wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the assembly. Ms. Hale, I think we're at.
Hey, Madam Mayor, I move ordinance 2022-06BJ, an ordinance transferring $116,600 for grant writing and consulting, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objections? Ms. Gladchevsky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Object for the purpose of a question. So when we did this, it was put in the manager's office because there was often, it is the best place to establish priorities. And you're the one who works with the assembly. You know exactly what we're doing. If it goes into the engineering department, for example, even in the manager's report, it talks about transit and streets, but there's airport and there's docks and harbors and there's sometimes competing interests there. So talk about why it's a good place to put it in the engineering department when really the manager's got the swing to make people play together. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gladysevsky. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So also a piece of the history is when we appropriated this, we did not know the federal government's focus on infrastructure. At that time, we didn't know if there were going to be operating grants for things like childcare, for example. So being unclear the scope of federal expenditure, we decided to put the funding in the manager's office. It's a little unusual for you to see transfers in operating budgets. You see transfers in capital improvement projects all the time. So this is unusual to move from the administration department, which is the manager's office, to the engineering and public works department. To the deputy mayor's question, the public works staff facilitate communication with the assembly through the Public Works and Facilities Committee, and also provide services to at differing levels to the airport, docks and harbors, Eagle Crest, and Bartlett. Many of those services include the procurement piece for hiring and soliciting for professional services or bidding for construction work. So I think that through the Public Works and Facilities Committee and its focus on capital improvements and infrastructure, there will be a better connection with the assembly. And we're always in touch with the empowered entities, trying to make sure that their needs get met as well as those of the core general government. I hope that answers your question.
Yep, that's good. I remove my objection. I just wanted that sort of discussed. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gladysevsky. Any objection? Seeing none, that is moved. Item 22, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-06, version B, K, an ordinance appropriating $100,000 to the manager for the Telephone Hill redevelopment capital improvement project. Funding provided by general funds.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
This ordinance would appropriate $100,000 to begin the redevelopment process of Telephone Hill upon conveyance from the State Department of Natural Resources to CBJ. An additional $2 million in project funding will be provided by temporary 1% sales tax if extended by voters during the October election. This project is number 9 on CBJ's FY23 legislative priority list. These funds will be used to initiate and complete a public planning process on how the city and borough should plan to redevelop and use the property. This process will naturally be inclusive and will contemplate a variety of options for using the property in the best interests of the public. Consideration of long-term needs of the Capitol campus and opportunities for significant housing development will be part of this process. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And I have Mr. Tangs signed up. Mr. Tangs, please state your name and area of town you live in for the record. And since our first speaker went 3 minutes, I'll allow you 3 minutes also.
Okay, well, thank you. My name is Tony Tangs. I'm Tony Tangs. I live on Telephone Hill downtown. I'm affected by this. I'm hoping I can ask a question as a legal interpretation of this ordinance that wouldn't impinge on my time, if possible.
Unfortunately, you can just do testimony at this time.
Okay.
Maybe we can pick up your question at the end.
Okay. The language of this ordinance appears to commit $2 million from the proceeds of the upcoming 1% sales tax extension for the demolition. Is that so?
Mr. Barr, could you fix his mic?
What's that? And if so, does it also inherently deliver consent for the demolition of those structures? If either or both is true, you should all reject approving this ordinance until the question of what to do with Telephone Hill has a more adequate and thorough public review. There are many residents that don't think it's wise to tear down 13 domiciles and further stoke the housing crisis, especially when you don't know what you want to do with the property. To approve it with the embedded $2 million approval and appropriation for the demolition of the Telephone Hill neighborhood will definitely not get my vote for the 1% sales tax extension, nor the votes of many of our supporters. And furthermore, if true, this appears to be a master class in hardball end run city manager politics by one who is at the peak of his powers and who knows how to bury a $2 million neighborhood demolition appropriation and consent in an ordinance innocently appropriating $100,000, knowing that a servile and accommodating assembly may not question or even notice such a shocking sleight of hand. The only way you can vote for this with a twinge of dignity is if you amend it beforehand to not demolition our neighborhood until you have a plan for what you'd want to do with the property afterward that has gone through the public process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Tangs? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony tonight.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question of Mr. Manager, or should I wait till after we move the ordinance?
Are there any questions? Ms. Hale?
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Manager, the $2 million that's in project funding for the temporary 1% sales tax, that I do not see. I see that mentioned in the discussion that's not in today's ordinance. My question to you is, if that temporary 1% sales tax passes, will that, before anything happens with that $2 million, will there be an ordinance that comes before the assembly so that we can be very, very clear, we understand what that $2 million would be spent for?
Mr. Manager.
Madam Mayor, yes, if the sales tax passes, appropriation of funds for the Telephone Hill project or any other project requires assembly appropriation, and that appropriation ordinance will require some direction. Expenditure of those funds, I imagine, will be discussed robustly at committee in expenditure for something like a capital project that would demolish properties, if that's what the city chose to do, would require assembly action as well.
Any follow-up, Ms. Hale?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Bryson.
Madam Mayor, with this being such a large and complex issue, wouldn't it warrant at least a little bit of time in Public Works and Engineering before, to hash out some of the details, to get some of the stuff hashed out that we do in Public Works before we brought it to?
I'm sure Public Works will have a hand in it at some point, but tonight we're just passing an appropriation ordinance for $100,000.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I just want to be clear to the public, all we're doing is passing an ordinance tonight for $100,000 to start the planning and looking ahead. So, Mr. Smith, I see your hand.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Manager, I had spoken with you about this and it was helpful for me to hear, but could you describe just briefly like what the public planning process might look like in some general timeline or in milestones, if you would, please?
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As best we understand it, the State Department of Transportation will transmit the property to State Department of Natural Resources in early October. And we believe that a DNR will take about 3 months to transfer the property to CBJ. So we may become owners of the property shortly after the new year. I think there's an assumption that demolition of the structures is the logical next step. And while that very well may be likely or a leading contender of ideas, that has not been decided by the Assembly or anyone for that matter. The intent of this funding appropriation would be to put out a competitive solicitation for planning services, architects, engineers, landscape architects, to work through a public process on how to best use the property. That range of options certainly would include the do nothing alternative, leave the houses as they are today, as well as a number of redevelopment options. Any municipal plan like that, we would have substantial public meetings. We would go to the Planning Commission. There would be updates for the Assembly, culminating in the Assembly adoption of that plan. Assuming the plan required resources to implement, it would require appropriation, bid awards, all sorts of Assembly approvals, might result in resurveying and re-subdivision of the property, which again would go to the Planning Commission. I would foresee quite a bit of public process to get a community to decide what the best use of this property is. It's been in this a little bit of state of limbo for over 40 years.
Any further questions? Let's see, where are we? We are at Ms. Wall.
There's more people testimony, isn't there? You said there was.
No.
No. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Did I miss anybody in the public that wanted to testify? Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the Assembly approve ordinance 2022-06BK, an ordinance appropriating $100,000 to the manager for the Telephone Hill redevelopment capital improvement project, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Any objection? Seeing none, it is approved. Item 23, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-06, version BL. An ordinance appropriating $187,442 to the manager for the design phase of the Gate 5 Passenger Boarding Bridge Capital Improvement Project. Funding provided by the Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program Grant.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
This ordinance would appropriate $187,442 in Airport Improvement Program grant funding for the Gate 5 Passenger Boarding Bridge Capital Improvement Project. This funding would provide for the design phase of the acquisition and installation of a new passenger boarding bridge. Local match requirement will be provided by previously appropriated 1% sales tax funds in the Gate 5 Passenger Boarding Bridge Capital Improvement Project. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any member of the public wish to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the Assembly. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-06BL, an ordinance appropriating $187,442 to the manager for the design phase of the Gate 5 Passenger Boarding Bridge Capital Improvement Project. Funding provided by the FAA Airport Improvement Program Grant, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any objection? Seeing none, that ordinance passes. Item 24, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-06, version B, M as in Mary. An ordinance appropriating $2,017,881 to the manager for the design phase of the ramp improvements capital improvement project. Funding provided by the Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program Grant.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
This ordinance would appropriate $2,017,881 in Airport Improvement Program grant funding for the Ramp Improvements Capital Improvement Project. Funding would provide for design phase of the rehabilitation of large air carrier and air taxi ramps. Local match requirement will be provided by previously appropriated 1% sales tax funds in the Ramp Improvement CIP. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the assembly. Ms. Gladysevsky.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-06. Oh, I turned it off. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-06 BM and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Ms. Gladysevsky. Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. Madam Clerk, item 25.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-06, version B, in as in neighbor. An ordinance appropriating $2,254,418 to the manager for the construction phase of the float pond improvement, capital improvement projects. Funding provided by the Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program grant.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
This ordinance would appropriate $2,254,418 in Airport Improvement Program grant funding for the Float Pond Improvements CIP. This funding would provide for the construction of and raising of the existing roadbed, introducing a drainage ditch, armoring the pond bank with rock, and reconstructing 14 float plane dock head walls. The local match requirements will be provided by previously appropriated 1% sales tax funds in the Float Pond Improvement CIP. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any member of the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the assembly. Mr. Bryson.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance 2022-06 BN, an ordinance appropriating $2,254,418 to the manager for construction phase of the float pond improvements CIP, and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Any objections? Seeing none, that ordinance passes. Item 26, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-06 B. An ordinance appropriating $2,400,000 to the manager for the purchase of the family practice building at 10301 Glacier Highway, funding provided by hospital funds.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
Bartlett Regional Hospital desires to acquire the family practice property near Industrial Boulevard to ensure the hospital has space to expand into as the demand for medical care increases. This property currently houses multiple established medical practices, and it would provide convenient access to medical care for people that live in the Mendenhall Valley. Hospital would like to eventually provide easy access to specialty care practitioners. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We do have Mr. Kenny Solomon Gross on line 2 if we have questions for him. So let's start. Oh, any member of the public wish to speak to this ordinance? Apologize. With that, let's start with questions first. Any questions on this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the assembly. Ms. Hughes Gathys.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm shocked. I would move that the assembly adopt ordinance 2022-06 BO and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that ordinance passes. Item 27, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2022-06 version B Q. An ordinance appropriating $1,185,900 to the manager for the hospital CT MRI replacement capital improvement project. Funding provided by hospital funds.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
This ordinance would appropriate $1,185,900 of hospital funds for the replacement and installation of 1 MRI and 2 CT scanners at Bartlett Regional Hospital. The existing apparatus has reached end of its useful life, and upgrades to the HVAC, electrical, and magnetic shielding are required for installation of the new equipment. This funding will supplement the original project appropriation of $2,300,000 in order to award the bid, which came in 65 to 75% above the architect's estimate. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the assembly. Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-06BQ and ordinance appropriating 1.185 million to the manager for CT MRI replacement. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Any objections? Seeing none, that ordinance passes. I know the other two items will have a bit of a discussion, so let's take a break now for 10 minutes. Business, item 28. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is Moline Investment Management request to purchase city property located at Peterson Hill.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager.
In June 2022, the city manager received an application from Moline Investment Management to purchase city property. City property included in this application is located northwest of Carl Reiches Boulevard and is located adjacent to what is commonly known as Peterson Hill Phase 1 development. Application states that the proposed project will develop the property for multifamily housing utilizing federal tax credits to provide housing to residents at 60% of area median income and below for 15 or 30 years. In order for the property to be conveyed by the city, the property must first be rezoned and subdivided by the applicant. Lands, Housing and Economic Development Committee reviewed this request at the August 8, 2022 meeting and provided a motion of support for disposing of this property to Moline Investment Management for fair market value. I recommend the assembly pass a motion of support to work with Moline Investment Management as the original proposer in accordance with CBJ 5309-260.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And we have Mr. Human to talk. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
All right, my name is Michael Human and I reside on Fritz Cove Road. I'm coming here to speak to you both as a professional real estate developer and home builder, residential builder in general, and also as a citizen of Juneau. And so I have two different perspectives to offer here. As a builder and developer, I am fully in favor of this because it severely diminishes my competition's ability to deliver housing in Juneau. There's one other builder active in the subdivision besides myself right now, and they don't have a lot of other property to go to. And so this will hamper their, competitiveness against me. And so, and in general, this subdivision, competes with me selling lots on the private market, or it had been, even though I bought some there because I needed the land, frankly. But, so on that standpoint, it's good for my business. But as a citizen of Juneau, I think it's a bad idea without some careful consideration, because this decision has a high degree of strategic impact about the disposal of the rest of this 100-acre plus parcel. By placing low-income housing at the beginning of your neighborhood, you will diminish the value of the remaining land there. People are hesitant to invest around this stuff. And it's not to say that we don't need it in this city. We have a lot of it. Some of it is pretty decent. Some of it's not, but we need this. People need this housing. And so the question is, should it be here, and does it fit with the assembly's broader strategy for disposing the rest of the 100 acres? If you want to do more market rate housing, if you want to do more housing that's owned by individuals, this will harm your efforts to do that. I can say that without a doubt. I can also say doing this will harm your reputation with future business enterprises, you know, selling land like this, because the people that bought there feel like the rug is getting pulled out from under them. This will devalue the homes that exist there right now, the people that have invested in that neighborhood. You know, I'm building a couple houses there, and you know, I hope to break even. I think I'll still break even, but I'm not going to make the money that I thought I would. You know, it's a major you know, stain on the reputation of the neighborhood to have the shadow of low income housing next door to you. And you know, it's a crapshoot. You know, you don't know if it's going to end up like the Coho Apartments or if it's going to end up like Orchid Point. You know, there's a wide range of outcomes in this sort of stuff, and it really depends on the developer. My experience with this particular developer is he's you know, he's an out-of-town guy. You know, we had property across the street from each other on Delta Drive, and you know, wasn't my favorite neighbor, but he may do better with a bigger project like this with more attention paid to it. But you know, I research who you're doing business with, because you know, my sense is when I saw this guy's name on it is, oh no. You know, and that's just my my opinion here, but I really do think this stuff needs to happen. We need these developments, these low-income housing tax credits. His point about the fact that, you know, we haven't had any in Juneau in a long time is a,
Mr. Human, I need you to wrap it up.
yeah, it's a big deal. I wish it would be, you know, in Redditor subdivision or something like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Human? Ms. Hale and then Mr. Bryson.
Mr. Human, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate your coming. One of the things that we talk a lot about, you know, we talk a lot about housing. We talk a lot also about affordable housing. And I think a lot of us were surprised to see the great big houses being built on those small lots at Peterston Hill. And we have in the future, even smaller lots that we're hoping to have on Peterston Hill to try to encourage affordable housing. What would you suggest? You know, I understand that nobody wants low-income housing in their neighborhood, but just in terms of what can the assembly do to encourage lower price affordable housing in that area?
I'm so glad you asked that. The simple answer is to reduce the cost of development. I grew up in Bonnie Bray subdivision, gravel streets, open ditches, no sidewalks, a lot cheaper to develop than it is to develop paved city streets with sidewalks and curbs and gutters and all that. You got to lower the amount of money it takes to develop the land, period. And until you do that, a lot costs, you know, $100,000 to create. General rule of thumb in my industry is about a quarter of the finished price of the house is going to go to the lot. So if it's $150,000 to create a lot, you end up with a $600,000 house. That's, you know, within reason. That's what's going to happen if the lots cost that much.
Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Human, thank you for coming tonight and giving us this perspective. As you mentioned, it's 100 acres, which is a substantial piece of land. Would there be separations, or like it's not a flat piece of land? There's elevation gains and it's got various sections of it. What separations would be needed so that way we could have like this front section as we're looking at, you know, 60% AMI or below, where maybe a mile down the road, could it be a different neighborhood? What kind of separations would you need to see in a neighborhood so you could almost see a separation of neighborhoods?
Access. And I think the Hamilton Street and the undeveloped right of way adjacent to that, if you put the access to you know, this area of the neighborhood from that right of way and maybe had like a fire access gate from Carl Reich's to this development, that would go a long way towards this. It's when you get all the traffic through the neighborhood going to the low income housing, you know, that it's, you know, and it's one of those things. I think, you know, this is what we ended up with in our settlement with the neighbors in Mountainside Estates. You know, we really worked to put the multifamily on a separate access from Hooter Lane, while you know, Mountainside Drive, that area, you know, the single housing family housing was over on that side. And, you know, there's kind of a transition through it, but it's, you know, the neighbors were happy with it there, or I don't know that they were happy, but, you know, we settled, you know, and so, you know, that's, I think access is probably the biggest thing. You know, you can do vegetative buffers and that sort of stuff, but when if the traffic goes through that area, that's probably the biggest driver there. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Human? Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for coming tonight, Mr. Human, and for your testimony. I was curious if you were familiar with what 60% AMI was for Juneau, and you made some comments about it being a stain on the neighborhood and the reputation of the neighborhood. And so I'm just curious.
So
Because I'm not seeing, yeah, I'm just curious.
it depends on the household size. And so I don't know off the top of my head that, I don't know if Mr. Lighthorn
Mr.
knows,
Manager.
or Mr. Manager knows.
Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
Madam Mayor, so the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development puts out adjusted home income limits. And so for Alaska, I'll just do a couple examples. A single person household, 60% would be 49,140. A 4-person household would be 70,200.
Great, thank you. That's illuminating, and I don't expect you to have that off the top of my head. I was just surprised and trying to make a connection between the two because I can think of several state jobs that pay that much. So I'm not seeing this.
And
stain.
it's I guess the thing is it's usually it's reduced for people that make under that thing, but then you're paying a percentage of your income often. And I would just encourage you to go drive through Chinook Apartments or Coho Apartments, spend a little bit of time. And it's not, again, there are complexes that do a really good job as well. What I'm saying is there's a mixed bag. And it's not reality, it's fear. It's the unknown. What is this complex gonna look like? And how well is it gonna be managed that causes people when they're going to make an investment in a new home to say, maybe not this neighborhood. And that's really, I guess, the biggest thing, and this is gonna be a multi-year sort of thing. They've got a core permit they need to get, and then this is competitive to get this funding. So that this project's not gonna get built for a number of years. In the meantime, efforts to sell houses in this neighborhood are going to have to overcome that fear in the mind of the customer. That's all.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. That's helpful.
Any further questions? Thank you for your testimony tonight.
You're welcome.
Any further testimony on this? All right, I think we'll have questions first. I have some, who has question? Ms. Gladysevsky and then Mr. Smith and Ms. Wall.
Sure, I have several questions to just start. First is the map that's on here just has Moline request on it, not what's phase 2 and 3 and what it all looks like to know. And I take it that the Clinton Heider request is in the empty block on phase 1. And so where's phase 2? I mean, it was sketched. So I just want to know, in part, in the kind of question that Mr. Human had, like what is the whole sketch here for the rest of are you driving through the Moline to get to phase 2? Are you driving not through there? And also who is Moline?
That's a lot of questions. So Mr. Manager, I don't know if you have a map showing phase 2 or 3, or Mr. Blydorn, if you have that, or we might have to get that.
Let's start to tackle a few of the questions. So process wise, Mr. Moline grew up in Juneau, moved away and was back visiting family and contemplating using his business expertise. He operates in Missouri, back in the town that he grew up in. He proposed the property, so he walked the property with his father-in-law, who's a local engineer, and thought that this particular piece of property had very good soils and was suitable for development. So he drew that line and requested that property. Packet page 95 shows the map with the property that he has requested and the phase 1 area. I'm going to look over to Mr. Blydorn, but the phase 1 area also is shown on packet page 103 in the appraisal, which is the property that the Tlingit Heights Regional Housing Authority would like to purchase. And I think they're on either side of the trunk road that we built with Carl Reich's Boulevard.
Right.
I think her question
can
is
see that.
actually where's phase.
Where's two and three? I see where the Moline property is and where phase one, where that phase one box is, which is Tlingit and Haida question.
Mr.
Mr.
Blyder, would you
Blyder,
come up?
Talk about future phases.
And if you can, if you know and point at the map, that will work too.
Yeah.
Sure.
And maybe actually before he does that, just a process question so everybody understands. Mr. Moline would like to buy the property if it can be rezoned. And he has a rezone application in that will be heard by the planning commission tomorrow night. And the request is to rezone from D10 single family, a detached home zoning district to D10, which would allow for multifamily.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And so I think what you're referring to is phase 1B and 1C. There's no real phase 2 of Peterson Hill that's been designed yet. And phase 1B and 1C are all included in phase 1. So you can see the yellow lines here was phase 1B. The remaining piece is both phase 1A. The remaining piece is both phase 1B and 1C.
Okay, if I just follow, so Moline is just off the map right now. I mean, all that's drawn that you drew is phase 1 and that's all in the red. And the other is just city land, sort of off the map, if you will.
Correct. I think I understand what you're saying. Moline is requesting the area that has the white checkered line around it. And that is the area Moline is requesting, which is adjacent to phase 1, which is being requested by the Tlingit and Haida Regional Housing Authority.
Okay, again, can I just follow up? So
We have
all
one
you've
question.
ever drawn is inside that red box. Is that correct?
The current approved subdivision is within that red box, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna follow up on that because it's the same thing. So there was no phase 2 or phase 3 ever drawn.
No, there was some, back of the paper napkin drawings of lines connecting to Hamilton and kind of going up the hillside for future expansion, but nothing's been designed yet. As you go up the hill, water and sewer become more complicated, and we really concentrated our efforts on phase 1, A, B, and C.
Thank you. Mr. Smith and them as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess connected, and it was, there maybe weren't things drawn like no subdivision plats or whatever, but was there a plan for what we anticipated being there? And then also in that plan, or I guess probably via zoning, I guess I'm just, anyway, what was the plan? And then the zone, I mean, I know they're trying to rezone potentially from D10 single family now just to D10. Or maybe it's to a different one. Anyway, I'm just trying to go with, I'm just hearing Mr. Human's point that when they bought, it was supposed to be X, and now we are maybe, are we changing that now?
Mr. Biden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great question. So if you look at Carl Reich's Boulevard in the Moline area, there was basically a dotted line that showed a right of way that would somehow connect to the Hamilton Street area. And up until Hamilton Street, this is currently zoned D10 SF.
What Hamilton Street is?
Sure, yes. And so Hamilton Street is right here. And there's an undeveloped right of way right here. This street was going to continue this way, and southeast of this line is currently zoned D10 SF. So part of this application would be rezoning it to D10.
Mr. Smith, follow up.
I guess maybe, I know things change, but I guess I did just maybe want to have the manager maybe speak to us, essentially having sold lots with maybe that it being a single family, and then we're now potentially considering allowing multifamily housing. Anyway, any I mean, things change, but any comment on that? And I mean, maybe tie property value and neighborhood kind of, continuity or whatever.
Any thoughts on that, Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Sure. I mean, I think the initial thought is that's what the planning process is all about. So over time, property owners come in and request new zoning districts. And that's what the planning commission, the planning department hears, and you approved a zone change tonight for Catholic Community Services. That's what the comp plan is about, is trying to chart that vision for the future and provide that overriding template. Zoning districts are not something that I think we want to change on a regular basis. And zone changes are big decisions that happen, every 20 years or so for a neighborhood or an area, probably at most, probably not any more frequent than that. So I think it's a big decision. So in kind of procedurally thinking about this, we have a developer who approached us asking to buy a piece of property. Whenever that happens, there's a threshold question for the assembly. Should we negotiate directly with that developer, or should we ask if anybody else wants to purchase that specific piece of property? So formally, that's the question tonight. Do we begin negotiations with that developer, or should we solicit proposals from other entities? This developer has a concept and development plan to go after low-income housing tax credits, which is a funding source that Juneau developers have not successfully leveraged very often or recently. And as I understand it, his desire to purchase the property is predicated on both getting successful rezone through the planning commission and being successful in being awarded tax credits. I think Mr. Human is right. It's not a fast project. It would be a couple years. My general counsel on this is it's a big deal. But I think you should avail yourself of the action of the planning commission. The planning commission hopefully will get input from neighborhood, near neighbors who might articulate comments like Mr. Human that, that the adjacency of zoning types maybe is inappropriate or not sufficiently good enough. I would, if you make the motion to negotiate directly with Mr. Moline, we can bring that back to the Lands Committee or even the COW as frequently as the assembly would like the input. So there'd be no guarantee of a sale of property. If you made that motion, it would just start the process of appraising and valuing. And you may indeed actually want more information from the developer prior to going further in a sale. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but I think probably important to stick to the decision tonight, this developer or a wider field. And if we begin negotiations with this developer, find out what the planning commission decides tomorrow, which will come back to you because any zone change has to be approved by the assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So I have Ms. Wall, Mr. Bryson, and Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Human also mentioned doing your homework on who you're doing business with, and I realized that was directed towards the assembly. So I will admit I haven't done that homework, and this is really the first project like this that's come before the assembly since I've been on. So my question is, at what stage is that homework done? What does that look like?
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll tell you what I've done for my homework and my general view of development projects. Maybe I'll do that first. Development projects are hard. Developers are successful when they're efficient and they have a good vision and they figure out how to build a good project and be profitable. And that's not easy. The developing entities that I think we come in touch with in Juneau usually come down to one or two or three people that figure out how to put a project together, how to line up permitting, engineering, financing, contracting. So it's a small number of people. So Mr. Moline, when I understood that he had put in an application, I researched his firm. I found his website. I looked at the projects that he's worked on. Looks reputable to me. Did some Google searches to see if I could find negative news. I didn't really find any negative news. Turns out, I don't know this is worth anything, but when I realized that he grew up in Juneau, I realized that I knew his parents and I know his in-laws. I would have no basis to believe that he has track record of poor development projects. Seems reasonable to me, I guess would be my research, but you never know. You never really know. And I don't mean that as a criticism of him or any other developer. I did some research recently because as a result of this question, I wondered about how our developers were doing with the senior housing project. We took a risk on that development group, and we went through the same thing. How do we know that these guys from San Diego are going to be a good developer? But we didn't. We took a little bit of a risk, and they hired a very quality contractor, and they're building what looks to be a very good project. They made some negative news recently for a decision they made that maybe wasn't, according to the reporting done, the best decision, but it appears like they're delivering a good project in Juneau. So long-winded way of saying, past practice, I think, is your best way of doing research on a developer. The internet can reveal lots of things, but I did not find negative information about Mr. Moline's firm. And it looks reputable to me and successful in the state of Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Follow up. Mr. Bryson, then Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a really quick, easy question, then a little bit more complicated one. Was Peterson Hill designed for lower cost housing? I thought was that its initial intent?
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Manager.
This is a great question. So Mr. Blinder and I have talked about this a lot. We're probably looking like who's going to answer this one. Well, so I think the goal on Peterson Hill was get homes that would be lower cost, smaller homes. The D10 SF zoning district was created a little bit of as an acknowledgement that we have some very popular neighborhoods downtown that weren't allowed to be legally constructed. So the Casey Shattuck neighborhood, the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th Streets neighborhood doesn't fit any of our zoning districts. Some portions of the Highlands, the same. The Barron's Ave neighborhood, small lots, very attractive neighborhoods, smaller homes. So I think in the planning for Peterson Hill, that was the thought. Use this new zoning district that fits these popular neighborhoods to see if we can get some small houses built. So we did that, but the developers who built houses saw a way to make what they thought was a better investment. Maybe they thought it was a surer bet. Maybe there was a better profit margin. I'm not really sure, but everybody who's built houses in Peterson Hill in that D10 SF zoning has built bigger, more expensive houses. Exactly why, you probably have to ask all those developers. So the D10 SF did not really result in what we were trying to do at the outset of that project.
Thank you. That was the easy question. What would the consequences be if we put this request out to a competitive bid process and let other developers look at this potential Moline purchase?
Mr. Manager.
Madam Mayor, I have no idea. So we've had this property. So the Peterson Hill project, the city taking an aggressive role in land development was met with some pushback from the developing community. Developers didn't like the city getting into what I think they thought was their business. We really haven't had interest in the Peterson Hill property until Mr. Moline came and said, I have an idea on how to develop this project in this particular way. And we've kind of had a long running conversation with Ms. Peta at the Housing Authority. And that was a longer maturing conversation, which resulted in her application as well. But we have not had other developers nosing around this property before. So I have no idea if other developers would find it interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think if I may make a statement rather than ask a question.
This one time.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that right now we're looking at this Moline request, and we also need to be thinking about the Clinket-Haida Regional Housing Authority request, which is interesting because that goal of that request is housing for lower income tribal members, but also moderate priced housing for opened up to all Juneauites. And so really what the whole idea is talking about is more mixed housing. I think as we face the housing crisis that we have in this town, and I appreciated the earlier testimony of the gentleman that talked about 1980 and how the housing crises come and go and come and go, and they're ever present in some form. What I'm hoping we can do in the next year or two is in the next year actually is find ways to make this conversation be part of our conversation much more frequently, because until we do, we are not going to solve this problem in this town. I live in the Valley. I live in a huge swath of single family homes, huge area of single family homes. It is so wasteful of land. There is all this land. I have 1/3 of an acre with one duplex on it. That's crazy. Anyway, we've got to find ways of getting beyond it. And I think, working within our process, but also how can we kick that process loose so that we can actually have these conversations and they're not just one-off conversations, not in my neighborhood. I understand people I have friends who have homes there and they're worried about the housing value, but we have to really kick these conversations open and figure out how to have them and not just make them one-off conversations about the Moline request and Peterson Hill neighborhood, but much bigger conversations so that we can actually have those conversations and talk about neighborhoods with mixed types of housing. Because if we don't do it, we are not going to solve this problem. I will get off my soapbox.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Ms. Hughes Candies, do you have any questions? Mr. Smith, did you have another one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I guess we, through our zoning and then I guess comp plan, we do kind of have attempted to envision what town or what the community will look like, including what neighborhoods and things will look like. So, I guess just a question. Are there other city properties that meet a multifamily zoning type that I'm just wondering, is there a better place for this potential type of development? I obviously understand that we just need housing, period, but just wondering if there's a better potential place for this.
Mr. Manager, your magic wand.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish we had lots of really good land. But I think as we talk about, we don't have a lot of great land. Mr. Human did mention the Renninger Drive subdivision. We created lots there prior to Peterson Hill. They have not been sought after by developers. We regularly ask developers, what about these lots in Renninger Drive? And developers have routinely told us, don't really like that that area and those soils look expensive to work on. We had that same conversation with Mr. Moline when he was here earlier in the summer. He tromped around lots of pieces of property. And he found this piece of property and he thought that he could make low-income housing tax credit project work there. And as he presented that to us, he essentially said, I'd like to buy this property and it's the only one I'm interested in pursuing.
Any follow-up, Mr. Smith?
I guess just, and I think you mentioned it earlier, pardon me. We will be, after you know, should we make this original or this motion of support, I mean, we will then come back and there will be a ordinance or resolution or something that we're then approving again. That's correct, right?
Mr. Manager?
Madam Mayor, that's correct. I think probably even more sooner than that. It seems like it's a big idea. It's a big piece of property. It's a big development proposal. I think that several things, if the Planning Commission, if the Assembly passes a motion to negotiate, and if the Planning Commission passes a recommendation for the zone change, the Assembly may wish to have a planning session and ask Mr. Moline questions about the development proposal and how it works and how tax credits work and what he envisions the development to look like. But I think for him, you know, he's got two questions that he wants to know before he invests money in the property. Are we interested in negotiating with him? And is the Planning Commission going to support a zone change? Because if either of those two are no, then he knows that he's wasting his time. So, you know, if those two things are yes, then I think he's going to be willing to spend some resources and develop the idea, at which point it would be appropriate to engage with the Assembly and, you know, have an informational session where lots of questions can be asked.
All right, seeing no more questions, I'll ask a couple. So you kind of touched on it. Has he made, when in your conversations with him, has he said he has to do the whole thing as multifamily, 60% AMI, or can he do more of a mix like Ms. Hale referred to, or do you know that? Mr. Blydorn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
They're all pointed.
Yeah, at the Lands Committee, when this was discussed, originally it was that 60% AMI, but then after discussing with the Lands Committee, the motion that was made would allow for units to transition from single family to multifamily, and the applicant was interested in maybe working with the Coast Guard to provide some units for them as well.
All right, thank you. And then go ahead, Ms. Glasgow. My other question, and Mr. Watt and I talked about this earlier, and we have no way of saying you have to have something going in 5 years or anything. We can't do any kind of that attachment to the land. So if we do sell it to him and it doesn't get developed, we can do something else with it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We do have some ability to put stipulations in purchase and sales agreements, but they're going to be having to follow the federal regulations with tax credits, and I believe that has timeframes on it as well.
Thank you. All right, any further questions? Okay, Ms. Glaszewski, you have a motion.
Sure, I'll try one. We have asked a lot of questions. This is the kind of thing I think is ripe for committee of the whole, but we just did it all here at the Assembly meeting. And I think the other one is as well. We as an Assembly are constantly under pressure to sell city land, sell land. We need housing. We have a lot of questions about what might be done on here, but this is just step one. And, you know, do we negotiate with this gentleman or do we try to sell it to somebody else? It's been on the market forever, right? I mean, anybody could have walked up to us and said, we want to buy it. And Peterson Hill was there, and so he got to see it. So that was the whole point of Peterson Hill too, to open up some land. Anyway, so at this point, I would move that the manager work with Moline Investment to negotiate for the sale of this land. We'll see it again. It's going to go to the Planning Commission. It's going to go to us again. So I'm comfortable with that to sell some land and see if we can get some housing there.
Thank you, Ms. Gladys. Any objections? Mr. Smith.
Just for question, I mean, your motion, Ms. Deputy Mayor, was to support, just to, I mean, for them to negotiate directly with Moline.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes, sir.
thank you. As kind of written in the packet. Okay, thank you. I'll remove my objection.
All right, well, I will object, and my objection has to do with the fact that this wasn't open market land. This was something he walked around and said, hey, will you sell this to me? We never advertised it. It was for sale, so I'd rather see it be opened up and see who else bites at it first before we go to one builder, even though he came to us with a project. I think there might be others, so that's my objection. So with that, Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So on the motion that the manager work with Moline Investment to negotiate the purchase sale of this land, Ms. Gladys.
Yes.
Mr. Bryson,
Yes.
Ms. Hale,
Yes.
Ms. Huskandies,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Wall,
Yes.
and Mayor Weldon.
No.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right, with that, we will move on to item 29. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me stop sharing my screen here if I can. Okay. This is Tlingit Haida Regional Housing Authority request to acquire city property located at Peterson Hill for less than fair market value.
Mr. Manager.
In August 2022, the city manager received an application from Tlingit Haida Regional Housing Authority to acquire city property for less than fair market value. Housing Authority requests the assembly consider the less than fair market value disposal of city property for the public purpose of developing CBJ property to provide housing for low-income tribal citizens and moderate-income Juneau residents under CBJ Code Section 5309-270. Property being requested is an 11.5 acre property that is commonly known as the future phase 1B and 1C of the Peterson Hill subdivision. I recommend the assembly pass a motion of support to work with the Housing Authority towards the disposal of CBJ property in accordance with 5309-270.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So similar, Ms. Gladys, you had a thought.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about this, and I think this is, basically appropriating over $600,000 based on a 1.5 page letter. We have a process for the Affordable Housing Fund that we spent over a year developing so that we wouldn't be in this kind of position of suddenly one-off developers saying, please give us 500,000, please give us 700,000. It's supposed to go through the affordable housing process. We have this long list of criteria and very expert people to review it for us. And at this point, we don't have any of that. So I would move that we move this to the committee of the whole to have some of those conversations. This is giving away city land, and it's, I would have a lot of questions before we did such a thing. And then we just spent 45 minutes on the last one. And so did you want me to make a motion? Or just make a statement?
Why don't you make a motion and we'll see what happens.
Okay, I would move that we move this. And in fact, the Lands Committee said to move it to the committee of the whole. So I would move that we move this to the committee of the whole and have all those questions there.
All right, Ms. Hale, then Ms. Huskandies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would object. One of the reasons that the Lands Committee moved it simultaneously to the Assembly and the Committee of the Whole was that, for example, the question of giving the land away free we didn't say, oh yeah, we should do that. We said, oh boy, the assembly as a committee of the whole needs to talk about this, and we need to figure out actually if that actually makes sense. What Tlingit Haida, and perhaps we can ask Mr. Blydorn or Mr. Manager to talk about the process that they've gone through in discussing with this with Tlingit Haida. But basically, as they've looked at how to make this pencil out, they don't think they can make it pencil out without the land being basically free. But there may be more considerations that need to, that have to be taken into account. So perhaps I would ask Mr. Manager or Mr. Blydorn to talk about the process that they have gone through with the conversations with Tlingit Haida, which has been extensive. They've been talking with Tlingit Haida for some time about this project. In my mind, by us actually passing that motion of support to work with the Housing Authority and at the same time bringing it to the Committee of the Whole, I don't think we're jumping ahead. We're just saying, please continue that conversation, but let's have some deeper conversations at the Committee of the Whole. And maybe perhaps Mr. Blydorn can give us a little bit of background on the conversation they have been having with the Housing Authority.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Mr. Blydorn, I think we're going to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And great question. Yeah, so we've been working with the Housing Authority for a while as they were putting this information together. And I think the thought with the Housing Fund is, does it make sense for them to apply for money for the Housing Fund to buy city property and like move that money from the Housing Fund to the Land Fund? So there was some like unsurety of that. And so I think that's why they moved forward with this letter in this manner. And so, and I think at this point, staff doesn't really have any authority to negotiate with them or to really discuss the application in great detail. So a motion tonight would open that door for staff to continue these discussions and gather more information. And then I believe it is on the schedule for September 26th at the COW as well. And so a motion tonight doesn't necessarily lead to the disposal of this city property. It leads to staff working with the Housing Authority to try to negotiate some initial terms and conditions that we can bring forward to the COW.
Ms. Hughes Candies, Ms. Wall, and then Ms. Glashewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Blydorn. And thank you, Ms. Hale, for speaking as to what happened at Lands. I would prefer to pass a motion tonight for staff to work with the Housing Authority towards the disposal of city property and then have that detailed conversation at the COW so that we're not slowing things down. I think Mr. Blydorn just articulated exactly why I would want to go that route. I would like him to start having that detailed conversation, and I can think of every other piece of city property that I've seen us get rid of. It always is a multi-step process. And so I feel comfortable at this stage saying, start that multi-step process. And then depending on how the COW goes, we'll go from there. So I would object to that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes Candies, Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in agreement with Ms. Hughes Candies on her points, and just add that when listening to the Lands Committee meeting, it seemed like there were also funding opportunities that Tlingit Haida were pursuing. And so moving this one step forward will just provide more certainty to them that and to their potential funders that we're moving this process forward.
Thank you, Ms. Wall, Ms. Glashewski.
Yep. Just say that the Affordable Housing Fund was set up for just evaluating just this kind of process, just this kind of disposal, just this kind. It is essentially a $630,000 appropriation, and there's criteria. There's people who have expertise. It's open on September, just open today or the 12th, whatever it is. Otherwise, we are going to be in the position of every time somebody wants to do something, they come directly to the assembly, and we are not the people with the expertise to develop, to evaluate this versus that. That's what a whole committee does. That's why we set it up, because what had happened is just this. A developer would come in and say, give us this land. And we would be like, gosh, we don't know. We're not the people. And we would be hours in a circle about whether this person should get it or that person should get it. So that's what the Affordable Housing Fund is for, to evaluate proposals like this. And that's why we have it. So.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gladys Shefter. We have Mr. Bryson and then Ms. Hale and then Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I really appreciate your hesitancy in keeping the process. You've been great the whole time I've been on the assembly. You always remind us of the process. Right now, we're in a housing crisis that I don't feel existed when we all joined the assembly in back in 2018. So we're at a higher level of a housing crisis. I've described it to the public when people talk about what we're doing for housing. I've said we've thrown the kitchen sink at trying to solve the housing crisis. So 99% of the time, Ms. Gladysevsky is correct that we need to have precise bureaucratic process to dispose of a single ounce of city land. But right now we're in the middle of crisis. We said, okay, we want all housing built as fast as we can. And so we've had groups come out to us and say, well, I want to build here and I want to build here. And the reason why I said yes to the previous one, even though it very well could have been argued that maybe we should introduce this for a bid process for the Moline property, but I don't want to get in the way of the momentum that we are trying to create. And that's what we're trying to create, is a housing crisis solution momentum so that housing is being built at a faster rate than ever before. I really appreciate doing things slow and methodical through the city. It's for the protection of us all, so that way we do things consistently. But we're in a crisis mode. We've been asked by the community to solve this crisis, keeping this moving forward. So I would strongly support moving this forward, and then still allow us to get more of the questions answered at the COW. But we're not in regular disposal city time period. We're in, oh my God, the community is screaming for solutions to the housing crisis. And I think we should behave accordingly. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. I have Ms. Hale, Mr. Smith, and Ms. Wall. And then I'm going to ask some questions. Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask Mr. Manager to share his thoughts on why this has gone this route rather than through the Affordable Housing Fund process. If you could just kind of share your thoughts on sort of what your thinking is on this project in particular.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have many processes, and for any applicant, in this case, the Housing Authority, they kind of have to pick one to start with. It would probably be out of turn for them to submit a grant request to the Affordable Housing Fund for property that we hadn't agreed to sell to them. That seems a little awkward. I think for most developers, the first step is, am I going to be able to control the property? Ms. Deputy Mayor, makes a point, where's the negotiation on this, and how do we know that a below market sale is necessary? We haven't seen a pro forma on that. I don't have a financial analysis. It makes sense, though, to me. I mean, most developers are very cautiously contemplating building new subdivisions of single family homes. I mean, Mr. Human, I think, is the only one that's hardly doing it at all right now. So I don't have a lot of details from the Housing Authority. And I think also, as a nonprofit corporation, why wouldn't they ask you for a below market sale and see if that's successful? There may be different models in there, or a lesser support that's appropriate. But I think, in whatever order we do it, I think inviting Ms. Peta to answer a lot of questions that the Assembly has would be appropriate. But I think from the applicant's standpoint, their number one question is, am I going to be able to work on the property? That, if the answer is no, then I don't want to spend any more time on this. But if the answer is yes, then they engage. So I think you have to get to the point where Ms. Peta is willing to spend resources to be able to answer your questions.
Mr. Smith,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does a motion of support, does it have to come from this body sitting as the full assembly, or could it come from the committee of the whole?
we've had this discussion before, easier from this body, but Mr. Manager, what would you say?
Madam Mayor, I'm sitting next to the attorney and the lands manager, and somebody could probably find what the code says, but I think that says something like the assembly by motion, something. So the assembly by motion. So if you want to argue that that's the assembly seated as the assembly or the assembly seated as the committee of the whole, seems formally the assembly seated as the assembly is probably better.
We do it both ways all the time.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess, and I should have asked this at the last discussion as well. What happens if you're in a discussion with a potential developer and then someone else comes along, or you hear of other interest? I mean, does anything change there? Or do you let us know, or anyway?
Mr. Manager or Mr. Blyder, both of you grabbed your mic. Mr. Blyder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whenever the city staff receive any interest on any city property, we always bring it forward to the assembly. So if we move forward with anything and another proposal comes forward, we bring that forward to inform the assembly, so that way they can use that towards future discussions and decision making.
Thank you, Mr. Blyder. Okay, last follow-up.
Just briefly, how does the process, what would you do if the motion instead was, I mean, if we say, oh, just take it out to the broader audience, like don't just negotiate with this one developer, what does that process briefly look like?
Thank you.
Looks like he's gonna answer that.
Yeah, so we would have to go out and produce a sales document and a brochure, and then we'd have some type of request for proposals that we'd review, and all those applications would come to probably the lands committee to try to get a motion. And then we'd review all those applications, and then the assembly would give us direction on which one to move forward to. I'm hesitant to say that that's any direction we should think about going for any land sales at this point, just because the number of projects is growing faster than we're working through them. And the process for sealed competitive bid competition land sale is pretty intense.
All right, Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question was answered.
Okay, I get to ask your question. I talked to Ms. Peta today, and I think the project sounds good. I like the fact that it's mixed. I'm not totally keen on the fact that we're giving them the land for free, and I asked her, what would she think about if we sold it to them for 100,000 and set that $100,000 aside for a park in the area? And she said that was doable. So anything, if we did a motion of support tonight, would that lock us into giving the land for them to free? Is my question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's a great question, and we don't have authority to negotiate with them yet. So we haven't started that conversation yet. And their application didn't state that they wanted it for free. It stated that they wanted it for less than fair market value. And then after the fact, they said, well, free would work. And so, and then I had a great conversation with the director of Parks and Rec about the area in phase 1B that's supposed to be a neighborhood park. And that exact conversation that sounds like you had with Ms. Peta today, I had a similar conversation about how can we get some funding for that park as well. So it's definitely on the table and could be part of the future discussions.
All right, thank you for that. Mr. Manager, you raised your hand.
I just have the code section, but it sort of enumerates that the sale at less than market value to a nonprofit corporation has to be approved by ordinance. So you're gonna get this several times at committee before an ordinance would be ripe.
Yeah. All right, so Ms. Hale.
Thank you. And I know that, you know, I've heard kind of conversation about, well, should we put this out for competitive bid, yada, yada. I will point out that this came up during the lands committee, that the appraisal of the property in the appraisal document, the appraiser went around and talked to people, and no one is interested in this property because it's hard to develop. And that's one of the reasons why the housing authority is asking for it at less than market value or even free, because it's hard to develop. So it's not going to be easy.
All right, with that, we have a motion on the table to not do anything tonight, but move it to the cow. Is that your motion in a nutshell? Is there objection?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, looks like you have a bit of objection, but we'll call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So for the motion to move this item to the committee of the whole, Ms. Gladysevsky,
Yes.
Ms. Wall,
No.
Mr. Smith,
No.
Ms. Hughes Candies.
No.
Ms. Hale,
No.
Mr. Bryson,
No.
and Mayor Weldon.
No.
Motion fails, 1 yay, 6 nays.
Do you want to try another motion, Ms. Glasgow? Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move that the assembly pass a motion of support for staff to work with the housing authority toward the disposal of city property in accordance with CBJ code 53.09.270 and ask unanimous consent.
Any objection? Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in favor of the motion for the manager, excuse me,
Motion of
for
support.
the assembly to pass a motion of support to work with the housing authority towards the disposal of city property in accordance with CBJ code section 5309-270. Ms. Hughes Candies.
Yes.
And Mr. Smith
Yes.
and Ms. Wall,
Yes.
Ms. Hale,
Yes.
Mr. Bryson,
Yes.
Ms. Gladysevsky,
No.
and Mayor Weldon.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1.
All right, let's take 5 minutes. Momentarily.
Yeah, because I gotta. Go ahead. You ready to go?
All right, item 30. We have 5. Item 30, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is hardship and senior citizen disabled veteran late filed real property tax exemption applications.
Mr. Manager, thank you, Madam Clerk.
There are 4 property owners that have requested the assembly authorize the assessor to consider a late filed exemption for their property assessment. They're on packet page 106. The assembly should consider each request separately. If the assembly decides to accept one or more late filed exemption requests, those applications will be referred to the assessor for review and action. I recommend you act on each of these applications individually, but I think you can do so in one motion.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Ms. Glasgow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would say the assembly reviewed each of these applications, and I would move that the 4 be referred to the assessor, and the 4 applications are for Young Shimabukuro, Ignacio Toribio, Everett Booster, and Luis Alfredo Aguiar. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, those exemptions are granted. Any staff report, Mr. Manager?
We're back to new business. We have the 2.
Oh, that's
bid
right.
awards.
Thank you. New business, item K. 10 and 11, numbers 10 and 11. Do we have passed those separately, I assume? Item 10. Mr. Bryson, did you move that one?
Do we need?
Thank you,
to
Madam Mayor.
Announce it.
I move that the city manager recommends, or I move that we award this project to Cornerstone General Contractor for the total bid amount of $2,329,698 and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Madam Clerk.
Just to put it on the record, which bid this is that he's referring to. This is
Oh, I'm
bid
sorry.
award for the BRH CT MRI upgrades.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I meant to say that, Madam Mayor.
Any objections? Seeing none, that bid is awarded. And item 11. Ms. Hughes Candies, you want to tackle that one and say what bid award it is first?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. For the bid award for the Juneau Access Road Float Pond improvements, I move that the city manager award this project to Seacon for the total bid amount of $2,272,463.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes Candies. Any objection? Seeing none, that bid is approved. Now we're moving on to staff reports. Any staff reports?
No staff report, but I'd like to thank Mr. Coleman from the airport and Mr. Rumsey, a new hospital employee, for sticking around even though we put them at the bottom of the agenda. Thank you both.
Thank you both. So assembly report, mayor's report, just briefly, enjoyed AML, enjoyed another round of COVID, enjoyed a trip to Minnesota. And this weekend I got to celebrate Jim Wilcox's 85th birthday. That was fun and got to see his museum. And also went to the dedication of the Salmon Creek Dam. And then on 9/11, of course, I was at the 9/11 ceremony with Ms. Hughes Candy. So that's all I have. So committee reports, committee of the whole.
The Committee of the whole didn't meet, it met as we met with the planning commission then, and the next committee of the whole is September 26th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Stream is not here, so we won't have a finance. Ms. Hale, Lands, Housing, Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lands, Housing and Economic Development met on the 29th of August. We talked about things that we talked about here tonight. We also talked about Telephone Hill lease request or a leased ordinance. That's in the works. That'll be coming to us as well.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Public Works, Mr. Bryson.
Madam Mayor, there was not a Public Works and Facility meeting this month. There is one next September 22nd.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes Candies, Human Resources.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We met earlier today and we have a couple of recommendations for appointments for the Youth Advisory Board. The names Bonita Nelson and Summer Christensen for terms beginning September 1st or beginning immediately and expiring August 31st, 2025.
Any objection? Seeing none.
And for the Treadwell Advisory Board, the name of Jamie Troxwell for the public DIA seat for a term beginning immediately and expiring May 31st, 2025.
Any objection to that? Ms. Troxel is appointed.
That concludes. Oh, I should say to the whole assembly that we discussed whether we should keep the, we do the interviews for the empowered boards, but we also have been doing interviews for the Systemic Racism Review Committee and whether that's the best way to get applicants or if that's possibly deterring candidates from going all the way through the process, and discussed perhaps trying it without, and Ms. Wall as the liaison is going to see what the Systemic Racism Reviews Committee take on it is.
All right, thank you for that. You done? All right, so liaison reports and comments and questions. Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Had the airport meeting earlier or last week. They still have a hangar flooding was an issue and they finally have decided liability because we didn't do an action to dump the caused the flooding. The city's not liable. We talked about parking. They want to put EV spots in the airport parking, and that's something that we need to pay attention to. There was a talk of having like a filling station type model, and we just might want to pay attention to it as they're redeveloping the airport. The compensation committee met. We're going to meet in executive session a little bit. We met in August and also today. LEPC meets on Wednesday this week, and I attended Jim Quinto's retirement at JPD last Friday. That concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson, and congratulations to Officer Quinto. I unfortunately was out of town, so worked with him many, many years. Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the summer conference with you in Sitka and also enjoyed my first COVID case. And let's see, I went to the 9/11 ceremony. Thanks to the Rotary for doing that. And I was in Anchorage last week at the Infrastructure Symposium, one day done by Senator Murkowski and the rest done in partnership between AML and AFN, and lots of great information and good food for thought as Juneau tries to capture some of the infrastructure money. And I was happy to see Director Kester up there mixing and mingling and getting ready to seize Juneau's piece of the pie. PrAC, Planning Commission, Juneau Commission on Aging, they all met. I don't remember the dates. The Juneau Commission on Aging is working still towards age-friendly community listing, and I spoke with someone in Anchorage who had received that designation. So that's my report.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes Candies. Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chamber Housing Task Force is scheduling a meeting to talk about the joint meeting that we had with the Planning Commission and the very interesting conversation there. I've also put out the request for input on the tax abatement for housing projects or apartment house projects. I also wanted to mention something based on what Mr. Bryson said. And I know you're aware about airport parking and EV charging. And I know you're aware of the charging study that Director Kester has been involved in trying to figure out where we put charging stations. And I just wanted to make sure that the airport is hooking up with that study so that we can actually take advantage of that and not go off in a different direction. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to ask the Assembly to be patient with me. I've got quite a few things going on between the two boards that I am liaising with. Docks and Harbors has a bunch of things happening that's going to be coming to us at some point, and I think you'd all appreciate knowing about now. You all will remember we passed an ordinance to appropriate $2 million to purchase the UAS property adjoining Aurora and Harris. The UA has decided that they do not want to sell us the land, and they're instead going to want to lease us the land. So that 33-year lease had ended. And so they will, it seems likely, be requesting full market value for that lease. And so the Docks and Harbors Board is beginning the process of evaluating their options, whether that's continue that lease, do a partial lease, or not renew the lease at all. So I'll keep you updated as they figure out what they're going to do there. You probably saw an email from Hanson Grass, who have purchased the Juneau Electronics building, and we're looking to purchase part of the city land that overlaps with their property, and the Docks and Harbors Board did eventually pass a recommendation to dispose of that property. So that will come to the Lands Committee. It wasn't without controversy, and I believe it was a 5-4 vote or a close vote. The board was fairly concerned about disposing of waterfront property or tidelands. Docks and Harbors is working with Goldbelt on moving forward on developing a small cruise ship dock at the Seadrome area. Goldbelt wants to build a new building there at the Seadrome building. There's currently a checkerboard of land that's Gold Belt and the city, and so it might involve some kind of swapping those lands to make them line up. So that will be in our future. And then they had public hearing on a number of ordinances that will be coming before us. One about boats being required to display their name and number. One clarifying that dogs must be leashed and that owners must clean up after their dogs in our harbors. And then clarification on how Docks and Harbors refers to their land management plans. And then a series of regulation changes that they took public testimony on it, but they'll have to do again because they didn't include the fiscal note. And so that'll be a while, but I wanted to mention one of them does prevent short-term rentals, anything under 6 months in the harbors. And so since we've been talking about short-term rentals, just wanted to make sure people are aware that that Docks and Harbors considering that and that would come before the assembly as well. Systemic Racism Review Committee, you've seen the reviews in our packets the last few assembly meetings, but you may have noticed tonight that they had additional thoughts on the pool board ordinance that we passed. You know, it was flagged by the committee for discussion. They discussed it over the course of 2 meetings, you know, with the kind of concern that reducing the number of seats on a board reduces opportunities for diverse members of our community to participate, and ultimately, you know, decided this isn't the, you know, this one thing wasn't going to fix the problem, but it really opened up a, you know, larger discussion that they've been dancing around for a while in terms of, you know, tackling systemic racism may not always tackling specific ordinances may not always be the best way to tackle systemic racism. And so they're going to spend some time tomorrow talking about how they want to maybe put their heads together to make some recommendations on how they can better tackle systemic racism. They have a break coming up as we have a break. And so they may have a work session or two to spend some time thinking through things they might want to communicate to the assembly about their process and how that's been going. Thank you for listening, and I will stop now.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. So it sounds like we should be maybe looking at a joint meeting with Docks and Harbors. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The UAS Campus Council met today. Actually, they are getting some, I guess, update would be enrollment is about as predicted, potentially about 1% down, but they're hoping they can maybe get it flat or maybe even slightly up as things finalize, and that masks are now no longer required at UAS classes. The Eagle Crest board met earlier this month. I was unable to go due to some travel. I did attend, however, their planning committee meeting where they discussed some of the logistics and I guess all things kind of related to the gondola installation. My understanding from that meeting was that discussions with Gold Belt are still continuing, seemingly proving fruitful, but maybe if the manager would, maybe when I'm done, would just give us a quick update, maybe on where that is. But my sense was that we maybe would be seeing things in the next couple of months. The Eagle Crest Board's retreat is October 1st. And I look forward to going to Southeast Conference tomorrow for a couple of days. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Glaszewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too went to AML. I got my first case of COVID. Meeting was good other than that. And I went to the September 11th memorial. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for helping to organize that. I got to lay the wreath, which was really wonderful. And the TBA board met and they moved their meeting and I couldn't go. So I don't have any report there. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
No. Yes, Ms. Hale.
I apologize. I failed to say that I went on a nice little ferry trip and got my first case of COVID and maybe the source of some of those cases.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. With that, continuation of public participation on non-agenda items. Either of you gentlemen want to introduce yourselves? Okay. We'll move on then to our executive session. Madam Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the Assembly go into executive discussion to discuss subjects that could prejudice the reputation or character of any person, specifically to discuss the attorney and the manager compensation.
Any member of the public, never mind, the public is left. We will move to executive session as soon as the clerks have us ready.